Afternoon to the presiding officer, to the members of the House, and special good afternoon to those who are viewing via the various media platforms. Mr. Presiding Officer, it seems like every year we play this game where this Honorable House goes through the process of asking for a whole bit of money. We end up with about half of what we ask for. And then we come back to the House asking us to, in essence, support the plans and the policies of the Executive Council. And then we kind of go through this charade that we seem to insist on going through again today, when in fact it would make more practical sense to really just come back to the people of Tobago and say in real life, real practical dollars and cents, priorities and so forth, that in this division, we asked for $10. We expected to do these 5 things. Because we only got $6, we will now only focus on these 3 things because these are the priorities that we can pay for. Now that is a request that the Minority Council has asked us to do several times. And it seems like there is a feeling that the request is only coming possibly from the PDP, so we don't have to do that. When in fact, what we are hearing outside on the ground is that this is actually what the people of Tobago would like us to do, because it is what actually makes sense. It is what actually makes sense. Unfortunately, I have actually gotten accustomed to the list of things that we claim to be very proud of, and we spend 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, and the people of Tobago still don't know what the priorities are and where we are going. Mr. Presiding Officer, it seems like we have gotten so used to good governance practices being completely ignored in this House. So it is hard for us to do anything other than what we've been doing for the last 20 years. And that, Mr. Presiding Officer, is a little bit disturbing. So because we have not gotten it yet, and because I really don't have any hope of getting it from any of the other speakers who will come this afternoon, I am going to take a little bit of time, having spoken to, interacted with, listened to quite a bit of people on the ground who would like to see specific projects completed. I would spend the time I have here, which won't be too long, identifying what some of those priorities should look like, given that these are the things that people chat about. I would like to start in my home, Mr. Presiding Officer, Belle Garden. And one of the things that keeps coming up is the fact that youth development needs to be the cornerstone of every developmental plan. And given the recent announcements about the reductions in gate and so forth, it's important for us here in Tobago to show the people of Tobago who we represent that we can provide alternative options for them. So one of the things that's recommended is that we create a holistic youth development program. And an option that was raised included using that youth build, the building that used to house the youth build program down Bay Road in Belle Garden, have that renovated and used for real youth development in the community. Yes, the people of Belle Garden appreciate the fact that the multi-purpose center is available. But one of the things that I continually hear on the ground is that the people of Belle Garden no longer really feels as if that belongs to them, since they do not have any real control about what happens there, when it happens, and so forth. So it is recommended that we develop this space for the people of Belle Garden and environs. And because I will publicly state that I am biased, that can house the Belle Garden Police Youth Club that has been asking for a space to call our own, in addition to other youth development activities, including one that is critical, particularly in this time and space, a tutoring / homework kind of space to help with the new kind of learning that is required to happen now because of COVID. Now, while I am talking about the area on top of the hill, I would also quickly mention the Belle Garden playing field that happens to be in no man's land. And I say no man's land because it seems like neither the division with responsibility for sport nor the division with responsibility for food production seems to take ownership of it. So it is continually underdeveloped. And we affectionately call it one of the prettiest sheep pens in Belle Garden because that is what usually overruns it. What we are recommending is that that facility be placed using a Belle Garden Sports Club partnership with the Tobago House of Assembly to ensure that that facility is well developed. That includes actually being cut, fenced, pavilion, bathroom, all of those things that are necessary for a real sporting facility to take place, and empower the community via the Belle Garden Sports Club to really manage that process, to really take ownership of that process, and to be a part of the real development of sporting in the area. Mr. Presiding Officer, let me move down a little bit to the Richmond area, because many people do not know that Richmond actually has one of the best beaches, dare I say, in the island of Tobago. And this is a place that we need to use, to harness, to ensure that it is maximally used. Which means we need to figure out how to maintain its natural resource, but allow us to have the amenities that would facilitate locals and foreigners, whenever they come back into the island, for them to be able to use it. Now, what I would recommend is that we have real consultation with the people in the community to figure out what is best for this area, because we've been having conversations about having, and these conversations have been really rich, about having, you know, possibly a water park, possibly a canoe area in the river. All of these options are there, but these options can really only come forth when we have real consultation with the communities that we are hoping to represent. Because that is why we are here, because we are representing communities. And Mr. Presiding Officer, as we speak about the issue of consultation, it would be remiss of me not to express the level of disappointment that I am personally feeling. And I know that members of the Glen Road community are also feeling, because they have not been given the opportunity to be truly consulted. They have not been given the opportunity to really express their concerns and to even give the necessary suggestions as to how they can be a part of the new process of having the Tobago prison facility thrown into their community. Now, we understand that the situation may have been dire, and we understand that the process of protecting the prisoners was something we needed to do quickly. But we also have to understand that people are genuinely concerned and they are genuinely afraid, and we cannot simply ignore those concerns and those fears. Our communities deserve nothing less than us truly, truly, truly representing them. Now let me go back to the developmental priorities that I'm hoping we would be able to do. In Richmond again, I am hoping that Richmond would be a part of a larger food security and food serenity process that is happening on the island. We have a pretty large number of farmers in that area. And they have said very clearly that they want to be part of a larger plan to ensure that Tobago can feed itself. Now, I know that we have been going around talking about eat what you grow and grow what you eat and so forth. But if that is not done in a very strategic way, then it will just be talk. Now, one of the things we need to do, because you hear the complaints all the time, is that we have on one hand, farmers who start producing things, and when they produce in large quantities and go to where they think they can get it sold, after the first or the second or the third go at it, they are then told that we can't take any more. And that then causes them to not plant the way they should have. And then the flip happens. We have suppliers who need items. And because of how this has been very unwavering, or this has been uncertain for quite some time, they would go to farmers and 1 time, 2 time, 3 time get the produce that they need, but the supply is not continual. Now, one of the ways that we can treat with that scenario is to have our farmers work within a mega farm type plan. And this mega farm type plan, what that would do is, since we have farmers that have relatively small acreages of land that they are cultivating, we can group the farmers and have them work together. So we know, for instance, these 10 farmers on these acres of land, their project for the year is to produce this quantity of a specific product. Now, what that allows us to do within the Tobago House of Assembly is to know that we have a very well-defined source. Therefore, when we are going out to market, we know how much material, how much produce we are going to market for the time period. Of course, to do this, we need to facilitate infrastructural needs in the area. So we are talking about water, electricity, security, and so forth. By the way, just as an aside, I am happy that it seems like the project in Goldsboro to get the water to the farmers in Goldsboro is on the way. I understand, though, that there might actually be some issue with WASA. So we need to ensure that how we are progressing with the digging of these wells actually does not make the problem that we are trying to solve, we don't make it worse because we are not doing it correctly. I would just propose that before we continue with that project, we ensure that all of the stakeholders, particularly WASA, is okra with exactly what is going on, because that may turn out to not be as positive as we had hoped, Mr. Presiding Officer. Allow me to move down to Glamorgan, an area where the residents continue to say that they feel so very neglected. They felt neglected for the last how many years? And so neglected that one person actually said to me that all they want, when other communities give you large-scale projects and that kind of thing, what they are saying is that all they want, Miss Faith, is for to just put some lights on the field so that when it get kind of dark, we could still play a little bit of football. The level of neglect has been so bad that is what they are saying. All they want is for a little bit of lights on the field, and that would make them happy. Now, I think that the people of Glamorgan deserve way more than just a little bit of lights on the field. So that is why one of the things that we can do is to help with our housing situation. And yes, Tobago does have a housing crisis situation. That we actually look at communities like Glamorgan, not the community that we drive in, but a little beyond the sheep pen trace part of it, where there is lands going inward. That we look at those kinds of lands and work to develop housing in the communities to expand each of our communities, starting with Glamorgan. And of course, because the mantra of the PDP has always been to use community people to do community work, one of the things that we are recommending is that we ensure that the villagers are a part of the process of building those homes behind that sheep pen trees area. By the way, the villagers are already readying themselves for this kind of project, because I understand that they've already started creating a skills bank, going around to all of the young men and young women in the area saying, hey, what you could do. And you now have a list of all of the plumbers, all of the masons, all of those people in the community, so that when we are ready to do that kind of work, we know that we are pulling the skills from right in the community, instead of having contractors come from outside and use the skills from outside of the communities. There is no question, Mr. Presiding Officer, that Pembroke is the capital, the culture capital of Tobago. Even coming from Belle Garden, I have no issues giving Pembroke its due respect for culture. So one of the things that I am happy, I was very, very happy actually, when I saw that there was some physical refurbishment of the Heritage Park happening. Now, I am hoping that we are using this COVID time to not just do the physical refurbishment of the Heritage Park, but that similar developmental plans are being made for the management of the Heritage Park, where it is run by the villagers that we know are very capable of running some of the best heritage productions on this island. This should be one of the locations, Mr. Presiding Officer, that no matter what time of the year, you should be able to go to that Pembroke Heritage Park and know for a fact that you are going to get a good cultural stage show. You're going to get some good dancing and that kind of thing. You're going to get some roast pork. You're going to get those things, because throughout the year, that heritage park is run like a theme park, just like Disney, just like all of those other places all over the world. There's no reason why we can't do that here.
Member has 10 minutes more.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. We have an opportunity to, again, use our entire belt to ensure that Tobago is food secure. And that includes the Goodwood area. Yes, we have quite a bit of farmers already in there. But I am not sure that we are really maximally using that space to ensure that we never, ever, ever have to bring in a single piece of any food that we can grow in Tobago from anywhere else again. Because we have enough fertile lands in those areas, and we have enough farmers in those areas that if that process is handled and that process is managed appropriately, we will be food secure. One of the things I'm also suggesting is that because of the volume of farmers and because we already have, for example, that tissue culture lab there, and because we already have that kind of learning about how to do the different kinds of plants, learning about greenhousing, learning about aquaponics, learning about how to do those things, because the reality is that the traditional way of growing food is hard. The traditional way of growing food is labor-intensive, time-intensive, space-intensive, and the young people, even the not-so-young people, are not interested in going through that kind of time and labor-intensive stuff anymore. And doing things like greenhousing and aquaponics is one way of ensuring that we grow the kinds of food that we need to grow without that kind of hindrance. And by the way, I visited a farmer in that area within the last couple of weeks, and I was actually blown away because he is doing aquaponics. I was blown away by the small space that he is using and the amount of produce that he's able to have in that small space compared to if he had used the traditional farming methods. Those are the kinds of things we should be introducing our young people to, so that they know that farming is not just something that is hard that the grandfather or great-grandfather used to do, and that it is not making sense. If we do it correctly, it makes a lot of sense. And if we do it correctly, we would ensure that Tobago returns to the position of being the food basket of the Caribbean. Ideally, the Aquaponics Center of Excellence, the Greenhousing Center of Excellence, all of those entities could become part of the University of Tobago to ensure that we are using best practice and to ensure that we pass that information to those who need it in the future. I am going to hop, skip, and jump, Mr. Presiding Officer, straight onto the Goodwood playing field. Straight on the Goodwood playing field. And hoping and praying and thankful that it was mentioned earlier today that the people of Goodwood, by the end of 2020, would actually have a pavilion. Now, I know we are in the middle of November, but if, as you all said earlier today at some point, that is a priority, it can happen before the end of 2020. At least, Mama Guy winner, at least bring some materials, at least have a nice turn-in ceremony. Something, so that the people of Goodwood would know that the pavilion that they've been promised for the last heaven knows how long since I came back to Tobago in 2007, I have been hearing about this pavilion that has been promised to the people of Goodwood. Please, 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 give us something. Please. Assemblyman with responsibility for sport, maybe this could be one of the things you do on your way out at the end of this term. That would be greatly appreciated, sir. Mr. Presiding Officer, we have an opportunity to really develop the Fort Granby area. It is a historical site that we seem to be losing how important Fort Granby is. So I am suggesting that we spend a little bit of time reinvigorating that space, looking at the fort area, looking at the beach facility, looking at the fishing facility, because we can gain a lot from that area. And I would round up by speaking, Mr. Presiding Officer, about the possibility of having a real waste management plan for the island of Tobago. I hear us talking about doing recycling, which is great. I hear us talking about closing down the landfill, which I've been hearing since I've been here in 2007, but we really need to action it. But all of these things will not work if we do not have a real comprehensive waste management plan where we understand what kinds of waste we have, and that includes a comprehensive educational plan for the people of Tobago. Because what we are doing really is going to be asking them to change how they have been living for a very long time, and that takes effort. Mr. Presiding Officer, as I wrap up, I would again reiterate the need to convert that Studley Park landfill to a mini golf course, because it is something that works all over the world. And I was actually pretty surprised when I was chatting with a friend of mine over the weekend, and she said, oh my God, that would be amazing, because she plays golf and she would love to have that facility so close to where she lives and so close to where she works. And of course, the people of Mount St. George would stop complaining about the flies and the stench and those things that are part of the landfill process. Mr. Presiding Officer, I know that the people of Tobago are equally frustrated with the myriad of promises that have been made that have never been materialized. And when they listen to the presentations that they've heard so far today, they continue to be frustrated, because I continue to hear some of the same promises that will never materialize for at least a decade. No. We deserve better than this. And I am hoping, this is a plug to the people of Tobago, that you have an opportunity coming up to redefine the kind of governance that takes place on this island. We have an opportunity to finally get representation that you can trust. And we are asking the people of Tobago to give us, the progressive democratic patriots, an opportunity to show you what good governance looks like, to show you what good representation looks like, because each and every one of us, Mr. Presiding Officer, deserves better than what we've been getting. I thank you.
Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development.